To this stage, the magicians behind Sardar Udham. Let's give them a big round of applause once again. Vicky Kaushal, Shoojit Sircar, Ronnie and Sushant, please come and join us. Shoojit sir, could I request you to sit here? Vicky, if you can come now. Ronnie, yes. Can we do a quick mic check and make sure that everyone's mics are on? Yes, it should be on, sir. Yeah. Super hit? Sushant, my first question actually is for you. And I wanted to ask you, we see so many different genres on Amazon Prime Video. What is going to distinguish this genre, especially for the audiences in India and worldwide?
There's so many things. As I said earlier, I truly believe that I think this is going to be one of those movies that I think is going to be talked about for a long time to come. Right? And we have had the pleasure of working with Shoojit, with Ronnie, with the Rising Sun team, and now with Vicky Kaushal's phenomenal portrayal of Sardar Udham. I think we have all the ingredients to taking this story to our audiences and customers across the globe in more than 240 countries and territories. So, this is a story that's going to be talked about far and wide. And I think it's kind of a story that lives through time, right? It's a story about past, but that still continues to be so relevant globally even today. So I'm so happy that we got to partner with the team on bringing this to our customers, and I'm very excited.
And we're all very excited to even watch it on the 16th of October, ladies and gentlemen. Shoojit, I'd like to ask you, what was your thought process and your creative process especially when you said that, okay, this is the journey that I'm going to get on with Sardar Udham and I'm going to go through this process with him? What was going on in your mind?
Are you talking about Udham as a Vicky as a character or as a film as a
Sardar Udham as the character.
Alright. There are not many documents available on how and Sardar Udham, like for example, how he went to London. There is no document proof that how he went there. Did he reach there via the sea route, or did he take possibly the land route, possibly from Afghanistan or Iran or Russia?
Yeah.
So, like for example, like this. So he was quite elusive as in nature also, and in terms of his behavior there, because he was in London for almost 6 years, and then previously also he has visited London. That also nobody knows. He was in US, he was in many countries that he has visited. While he was in London, he visited many other European countries. So all this information is there, but it's very, there's not too many information on this. Yes, we know that, he went to London and he assassinated Sir Michael O'Donnell. But what I did was, in terms of my inspiration, if you ask me, if I understand your question, is that in 1999, from the college, I visited Jallianwala Bagh. And anyone who is there, whoever visits Jallianwala Bagh, who will get affected? It's such a place, it's such a tragedy that has happened there. Anyone will get affected.
Absolutely.
And I was also quite deeply affected. And I started reading about it, what all happened. So I went to each and every library in this country possibly which has any document on Shoojit Singh. And I got those documents. I found out especially from the statements of a lot of survivors from Jallianwala Bagh. And that's how the inspiration came in. I was so moved that I must tell this story. I wouldn't say it's a story, but it's a sacrifice. So that's how the inspiration is. And I think whatever my expression is, whatever's inside me, I have poured it completely, absolutely in this film. So there is no inch left in me that I have not poured it into this film.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely. We can see a lot of that in the trailer, and I'm sure we're going to see so much more of that when we do see the film as well. Ronnie, I'd like to ask you a question. I know that you spoke earlier and you told us, and we can also see what Sujita also said as well. There's just not so much information out there, and like you mentioned earlier, it was almost close to 2 decades of kind of back work and history work that had to be done to document the life of Sardar Udham Singh. So that was one challenge, which I'm sure was the main challenge. There was also the shooting that happened in multiple locations from what I believe as well. Was that also another very big challenge, going to multiple locales, creating that world as a producer as well, and making sure that you create it absolutely correctly?
Absolutely. And as you said, to recreate that world with that authenticity, because we didn't want to make it into a spectacular thing, but end of the day it had to be real. That was the thing. So this is one film I can say that as a producer it was not like I was like, okay, this is your budget and you go ahead. I was sitting on the ground, and you could only make this film if you were all sitting on the ground. As a team we worked on it. At times I was working as maybe the production assistant or a directions assistant or whichever thing was required, because I think the vision was way bigger to achieve, and all of us had to go beyond our regular space of, okay, this is my designation and this is what I do. I think everyone took that one step more than what they could do in a film. And in terms of hiring also, it was one of the most important criteria for me, for anybody who was in the project. It was not another project for them. I wanted people who felt for the story, who felt for this important film and come on board so that they could give their best on it.
And we can definitely see the hard work, blood and sweat and tears.
And the passion was important.
And the passion that has gone into it. Vicky, my next question is for you. And I know that this is something that, everybody wants to know. How does one train and how does one kind of get into the shoes of a character when there is such little information out there about that character, and you still obviously want to make sure that you portray it to the best, not only to the best of your abilities, but the truth and the true of your abilities. So what was that process like?
To start with, actually Sardar Udham and many other characters in the history of our freedom struggle, when you go back to our history books, they get lost in a line in the book or a paragraph in the book or just a page in the book. Yeah. And probably Sardar Udham, we can say that Sardar Udham Singh was one of those characters that he probably was that one in paragraph or a page in that book. But because I had heard his stories from my grandparents and my parents, there was always this connect. There was always this connect straight from my core, where I related to that guy, I related to that person, and I related to his angst. Because Jallianwala Bagh, the massacre, the episode, to everybody in India or across the globe, it had hit home in the most brutal way for all of us. So a person who had taken an oath to avenge that bloodshed, not in India, but to actually cross borders 100 years back and go all the way into the heart of the British Empire and then to avenge that bloodshed, for me is a story of resilience, of bravery, of patience, of a very, very passionate person. And through this story, through this film, I really wanted to explore that factor inside me also. It is not the most easiest note to touch. And like you mentioned, like Sujita also mentioned, Sardar Udham Singh is not a character which is widely documented. in our history books.
Yeah.
If you go about reading books on Sardar Udham Singh or the Jallianwala Bagh episode or even the Indian freedom struggle, you will find different stories about the same person. You will find different names, you will find different identities, you will find different faces. How do you tap on to what the core of that person was? Very early on, when I started discussing the film with Sujita, I understood that there is only one way to go about playing this part. It was to completely and utterly surrender to his vision and to how he wanted to guide me. Because the more I kept listening to him, the more I understood that the way he understands that era, the way he studied the freedom struggle and Sardar Udham Singh, Shaheed Bhagat Singh, I have never met a person who studied in such detail. So I had to completely just surrender to his vision, to his guidance, to his direction. And that's how we all started on this journey. There's a very interesting episode I want to share. I don't know if Sujita would also remember that.
Okay.
Before we took off to Russia, where we shot the London portion, Sujita gave me a song,
Okay.
a track, which was just... Sorry? Sure. तो जब हम रशिया गए शूटिंग के लिए तो उससे पहले सुजीता ने मुझे एक गाना दिया, एक ट्रैक दिया, which was just एक एम्बियंट सॉन्ग. वो गाना उसमें कोई लिरिक्स नहीं थे, कोई गाना नहीं था, बट जस्ट सिर्फ एम्बियंट साउंड था. एंड सुजीता ने मुझे वो गाना बार बार सुनने को कहा. मुझे नहीं पता था उसका पर्पस क्या है. एंड दैट वाज सपोज्ड टू बी माय प्रेप फॉर द कैरेक्टर. एंड आई वाज वहीं से मैं बहुत इंट्रीग हो गया था कि व्हाट इज इट दैट इज वांटिंग मी टू फाइंड फॉर सरदार. जब मैं गाना सुनना शुरू किया एंड मैं सुनता रहा, इट हैड अ वेरी मेडिटेटिव इफेक्ट ऑन मी, वेरी कामिंग इफेक्ट. एंड आई स्टिल रिमेंबर हम फ्लाइट में थे एंड इट वाज ओनली मी एंड सुजीता. एंड आई कन्फेस्ड टू सुजीता कि सुजीता, दिस कैरेक्टर इज, ये वो कैरेक्टर है जो अपने मन में, अपने हार्ट में 21 साल तक एक गुस्से को पाल कर बैठा है, एक एंग्स्ट को पाल कर बैठा है. Why am I listening to a music which is calming me down, which is almost meditative? And he said that कि जब इसी music में, which is calming you as Vicky Kaushal, if you find the turbulence in this music, if you find the disturbance in this music, that is the note I want for Sardar Udham Singh. That is where Sardar Udham Singh lies. And that day I felt that मुझे to play this character, I have to dig so deep inside. That it can't be surface level, it can't be what I'm wearing, what my look is, what my body language is. It has to come straight from the very core. And from there on, when I was completely, I just surrendered to what he was guiding me, to what he was directing me, and I hope and I pray that as a team we have lived up to the legacy of Sardar Udham Singh.
I'm sure, I'm absolutely sure. Sujita, is that track, do we ever get to hear it?
It's only with
It's only with Vicky?
I don't remember because I forget quite easily.